Hi, I'm Darlene Carman, and welcome to the show. One day in 1989, a friend and I were taking a walk at Vasona in Los Gatos. I told her about the restoration of the carousel there, and we stopped in to check it out. I met Charles Dewey, who sent me home with 2 huge rounding boards to paint for the carousel. This first one here is what I call the peacock wagon, and it's up in the top of the carousel. It's huge. I had to use 3 different easels to paint it. And the second one is in the center. You actually have to be on the carousel to see it. It's an elephant wagon, and you can't really see the red wagon because it's hidden by the horse, but it's a big red wagon with gold bells. Fast forward to recently, I read about another walker who noticed the horses needed a makeover and suggested an idea to help restore the horses. Francesca Alexander, CEO of the Bill Jones Wildcat Railroad, and 2 horse restorers, Kathy Murphy and Cheryl Stuermer, will tell us about a community dedicated to preserving a part of the railroad and carousel history. Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I'll get your name right sooner or later. So anyway, let's just start out by talking about the significance of the W.E. Bill Mason carousel.
Yes.
Why is that so important?
Well, the carousel has had a really rich life so far. I mean, it's traveled a bunch. It was originally manufactured for the 1915 Panama Exposition. And after that, it traveled all along the Horn and actually joined a couple of circuses. And then in 1967, it retired from traveling and it was just kind of abandoned. And Bill Jones Wildcat Railroad, yeah, for a good while too. The Bill Jones Wildcat Railroad, Inc. Purchased it and basically restored the whole thing. It took about 10 years, 200 hours per horse. We have 30 horses. So it was quite an undertaking. And then it made a debut at Oak Meadow Park on July 4th, 1991.
Well, a little bit of research on this. I found out that it was an English made by Savage. That's pretty unique.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I don't know if people noticed in the picture, it goes the opposite way from a regular carousel.
Yes.
And to my knowledge, isn't this the only one that we have like that in California?
Actually, I'm not quite sure about that. I think there's one more. But we're in the Bay Area, so we're the only one in the Bay Area.
It was actually made in 1910?
Yes, 1910.
So it's really quite significant that way, too.
Yes.
None of us were around then. So how did the Adopt a Horse program come about?
So the Adopt a Horse program,
I'll start with that because like when I'm working at the carousel, people like to stop by and look at what you're doing. And there was a woman that used to walk through the park with her son, and she said to me, would I be able to have one of the horses named after my son? His name was Holden. I said, would I be able to name, could you name a horse after my son if I made a donation to the carousel? And I said, you know, I don't think we've done that yet, but let me, you know, roll it by Francesca and see what she thinks. And so I talked to Fran. I said, you know, Fran, you know, we should look into this maybe. And we started to research other carousels and how they raised funds to restore the carousels. And that's kind of how we got going with the Adopt a Horse, because, and Fran and Cheryl and I, we formed a committee, and that was the one that Mike was on.
Yeah, Mike Kotowski.
Yeah, and so then we met and got together and figured out the best way to put together the Adopt a Horse, you know, program that we debuted at what, Memorial Day weekend?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was very successful, I understand. All of the horses were adopted like as fast as I could read it in the paper. I think they were.
Yes, they are all adopted.
Within the month, they were all adopted. So it had a little bit of a slow start right at that weekend, but once June hit and we were in our summer schedule, all of the horses were adopted within the end of June.
Well, it's a great idea. Now, Kathy, I know that you're an artist, And also, you've been a teacher, art teacher, but you really didn't have any experience in this line. So how did you learn to develop the skills?
Well, so just walking, I used to live in Los Gatos, and so I used to walk through the area, and there was a thing there saying they were looking for volunteers at the railroad, and I filled out the volunteer application, and they were definitely looking for someone to start working on carousel horses, and I thought that would be great. And so I researched online, and I did go and talk to Jim, is it Sugai?
Sugai.
That used to paint there, but I felt that I needed more information, so there's a guy named Denny that takes care of the music at the carousel, and he knew the painter that restores everything at the Santa Cruz Boardwalk.
Oh.
And that painter, his name is Jimmy, I think. And so Denny brought me down to meet with Jimmy, and he let me, I had all these questions, and he let me go to his workshop, and he went through the whole thing with the process that he went through to how to restore the horses, the paints that he used, the types of brushes that he used, and that gave me lots of information to work with. And so I came back with that, and that's how it got going.
Wow. So, the type of paint, is it like enamel? Is it oil?
Well, he suggested, yes, it's oil-based. It's sign painters. What are they called? One-shot sign painters? Enamels?
It's a sign painter.
Because it gives a nice finish. And before that, they were just using, I don't know what types of paint, latex and stuff. But this works out really well. Yeah. So.
Well, this is quite an undertaking because you have like 30 horses, as you mentioned. So how long does it take to do one horse?
Okay, so I'll talk about I started with a simpler horse. It was just a smaller horse, and like Fran said, to use this as your practice horse, just to see how it all goes, which is what I did. That was my first horse, was Clip Clop. And so,
Clip Clop?
Well, a little boy from a class I was teaching suggested that name. But when I look back, each horse, I've done 4 horses so far, and each one of the horses has taken me about a year. Now, the horse that I'm working on right now, I've had since last September, and I'm only just starting to put paint on him because I spent the rest of the time getting him ready for painting. Wow. You know, getting it prepped and sanded down and all the wood that had to be repaired. So it does take a while, definitely. I mean, it's just one day a week that I'm there, so.
Oh, okay.
It's only one day a week that I'm there, so. You know, maybe we'd go faster if I was there more. But.
Well, then people probably, they can watch you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so then you're talking. I know I get very distracted. I would have a hard time.
Well, that's why I don't normally like to go on a weekend to paint there, because there's so many people in the park, and they do like to ask you how you're doing and what's this.
Yes.
And so sometimes you can spend the whole day just talking and not getting much painting done.
I
So,
bet.
yeah, oh yeah.
Now, Cheryl, you have an art background as well. But you're kind of new. You just got started with the crew last year, I think it was.
Yeah, a year ago.
What is your specialty? What do you do?
Well, my background is in graphic design.
Okay.
So my specialty, one of the things that I did this year was paint the names on each of the horses. So we decided to use a banner style. So that was something I used my skill with. And then just in the general design of the horse, the graphic arts and, you know, and attention to detail and everything really works with painting the horses. So,
What is the hardest part of doing? Wouldn't you say it would be the sanding, right? No?
Well, I think the hardest part is the repairs.
The repair of all the damage that's
the
been
damage. Like
Well, you had, that one really hard.
The first horse I did, Spirit, had a lot of nails in it and metal in it, which had rotted parts of the wood.
Yeah.
And you know,
Let's see some of those pictures. Actually, we've got some horses here to show. And you can talk about the horses as we show them.
Yeah. So that's one of the horses right now on the carousel. That'll be the next one I'll be working on.
Jungo.
And Jungo was named after Jim Sugai.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, right.
Now, the spots were already there, or you added that, or?
I haven't actually worked on this. I will be after I finish with Finn, which is the horse I'm currently working on. I will be restoring Jungo, and one of the challenges in restoring Jungo is going to be preserving how he looks now, because he's a favorite of all the little kids. They ask for the polka dotted horse. He's a
Some people
favorite.
have
I've had so many people say, "You're not going to take the spots off Jungo." So I said, "No, we're going to keep the spots on him." So that'll be a challenge. You know, I'll take pictures of the horse so that when I repaint it, I make sure I'm getting everything, you know,
Next.
correct.
That's groovy. So Charles Dewey, you mentioned, he actually built a mold because we were short a horse when we started restoring. One was just in too bad of a shape to save it. So Charles Dewey made a mold, and we actually made 2 horses.
Oh,
And
he
so,
made the mold.
Yeah,
huh?
he did. He constructed it. And we have 2 horses currently on the carousel made from that mold.
Oh.
And
Which are great
Yeah.
because they allow us to take the horses in need of repair off the carousel. We can have 2 off at a time. So those horses are a very valuable part of the carousel.
definitely.
Too.
Then next, we got another one.
Oh, and you can see the name and how
Yes.
he did that on these.
Now that's one of the horses that I restored.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the large ones.
And Holden, who
Okay, so this was the first horse clip cup that I got. So when I first started there, they gave me a simpler horse. There's no carvings on the side, no wrist saddle or anything like that. And that was also a table that Jim used to paint the horses on, and I was having a hard time with doing it on a table. So the men at the railroad built a pole for it. So probably the next picture that you're going to see, I've got clip cup on a pole, which was easier for me to work on the horse, because this is, as you can see, a little
Then
challenging.
the next picture, let's see the next one there. Oh, there
Okay,
it is.
so this is him after I've sanded him down and put probably 2 coats of primer on him. But he's on a pole now, so it's way easier for
Much
painting.
easier.
And they've even done something even better. They've got a thing now that on a hydraulic lift that we can get the horse to go up and down.
So you don't have to get on your belly.
Well, right. In order to paint the hooves, you have to kind of basically lay on your back on the floor.
And this is the rocking horse style, right?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, next,
Oh, there's Clip Clop, all finished.
Oh, that's clip clop finished. Yes.
finished.
He's finished. This is the completed thing. And I think there's a picture of him on the carousel we might
Yeah.
see later on. But yeah. Oh, there he is.
Ah.
Okay. So he's back on the
Happy.
carousel now, looking happy.
Yeah.
Okay. And the next one?
That might be.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, this shows some of the shape the horses are in. So on the exterior, we can see a crack.
Now,
And
what are we looking at here? The foot?
We're looking at
Or the-
part of the leg, it looks like.
Yeah, it's part of the front leg, or
No.
and the way the horses are constructed, they're all laminated wood pieces together. And so on this one, some of the laminated grooves are coming apart, and there's been rot that's happened inside. So we have to take the rot out and then assess, do we take the nails out now? Will it ruin the piece? Will we have to have a new piece of wood? And in some cases, like on this one, we just got rid of the rot, elected to leave the nails in, but make note in a photo of the nail, and eventually we'll probably have to have a new piece made for
So
that
you
horse.
wouldn't like, excuse me for this dumb question, but I mean, you wouldn't have to put putty.
Well, no, putty, but I do use a marble-based material. It's an artist material,
Okay.
and that's what I fill in the grooves with, let it dry, and then I can carve and sand it to the shape that
So it's strong.
it was. Very strong.
For a while.
Very,
It'll
very
last
strong.
for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Not forever.
Right. And it bonds well with the wood, so.
Okay. And the
I think
next
there's
one?
a few more of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we get, that's what a crack will look like, and then we'll need to use our tools to get all that material out to see what kind of shape the wood is in underneath. Because sometimes they're just cosmetic.
Well, that was like major.
That was major.
That looks
That
very
was-
surgery.
Yeah, that was a big, big repair on Spirit.
That was all on your first horse, huh?
That was all in the, and that's only 3 spaces. The first horse was, I learned a lot about restoration, about wood, and most of these horses are made of basswood and pine pieces that are glued.
Soft.
Yeah, a
Very soft
softer,
wood.
lighter wood, and they're glued together with a glue made from hooves of animals. And so you have to be careful on what chemicals and materials you use. You can't like dip them to get the paint off because that just
Oh,
erodes
right.
all the glue, and you know you have to take
What
some
a
time with them.
process. You know, you guys should make a video of this process. That would be interesting to show to people, and then they would really understand what goes on.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
No, Cheryl's done a lot of research on it, and she does very, very well with this whole
Oh,
restoration
yes,
part of it.
absolutely.
As do you.
Is that it, or do we have
But I
a
haven't
bit?
run into those
This
problems.
is that horse finished.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's Spirit.
And she learned how to do stippling and stuff too, which is just beautiful on that
and
horse.
stippling is?
Stippling is when you have a flat brush on an angle and you just kind of go in dots, and that's how you get the shading and the gradations of color. Because this enamel, you can't really do that, so you have to use oil paint, artist's oil, over the enamel after the enamel is dry. And so that's how he did it, to get all the shading. We don't use airbrushes because the paint is too toxic, really, to use in an airbrush. So for us, we
We're stuck
do
in a
not.
contained space.
Sure, sure.
Small
We wouldn't want
space.
to do that. So we have to, I had to research, because I'm a graphic artist, not a fine artist. I had to learn some new artist techniques, and it was fun. Enjoyed it.
Well, I think you should stay with it. You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
So let's sit on the pictures, yeah? Nope.
Yep.
Nope. Yes.
Another
More?
That's
her
him on the
horseback on the
carousel.
carousel.
Spirit on the carousel.
He's in the middle.
Wow. So what is the goal now to complete? I think I read from you 2 a year. Is that the?
Yes, so one basically per artist. So Kathy will complete one in a year, and Cheryl will complete one in a year.
Wow.
Unless,
We
you know,
swap
they go
that for other
faster.
ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, some go
How
faster
long,
than others.
My math is bad. How long will it take then to do all 30?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, probably not in my lifetime.
Serious?
Yeah.
It's like really a long time.
It'll
huh?
take a
Yeah.
long time.
We
And
s-
we cycle through and identify which ones have the most need for repair. So, you know, certain cracks we can assess whether it's cosmetic or whether there's really, you know, something integrally wrong with the horse that needs to be fixed sooner. And that's how we determine it, and that's what determines the length of how long it takes to do. So Spirit took me a really long time because all the damage you saw. The new horse I'm doing, very little damage except for one ear. So
you're
it
working on
didn't
that.
take
Van
that long. Yeah, it had one ear that was really in bad shape. So
Well, now, besides the horse restoration that you're doing, the carousel also had a really major mishap. What happened?
So last year during a routine inspection, we found a major malfunction in the shaft of the carousel, which basically holds the top of the carousel. It was one of those things where we kind of knew what would take to fix it, but it was a little bit outside of our, I guess, expertise. So we had to kind of go out and find somebody who really knew what they were doing. I mean, it's a 1910 carousel. How many of those are you going to find? We did find a company called Historic Carousel out of Oregon, and they were able to come down to us and fix the carousel. The fix took about a week. So they were able to go in.
They came to you.
Yeah, they came to us.
How cool is that?
Yeah. Well, it would have been really hard to
yeah,
take our
you'd have to,
carousel. So we kind of had to work with them and be like, hey.
So it was major. I mean, it wasn't just a part that had to be fixed. I mean,
It was major in the fact that it was at the very top of the carousel. It was really hard to get to. It wasn't one of those things where it's like, okay, let's put it out of service for a day and take care of it. No, we had to basically just build a structure around it so all of the weight that was weighing on that shaft could come off of it so they could work on the shaft.
now, is this the first time that a really major malfunction happened?
Yes, to this degree,
That's
yes.
pretty good, though.
Yeah, I would say so. That's pretty good. But actually, this was another big reason why you needed a fundraiser, not one that's just going to last for a while, but something that you can put back in the kitty
Definitely.
to if you have more things happening later.
Yes,
right?
Definitely.
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 Well, as much as I love the carousel, I would say the premier attraction at the Billy Jones would be the Wildcat Railroad.
Yes.
And that's been delighting people since 1970.
Yes.
And is it true that the engine number 2, which is famous, I understand, it's a steam engine, and that used to run at Venice
Yes.
Beach, not Venice, Venice Beach
Venice
in
Beach.
California.
They had a commuter railroad. Basically, they took people from one side of the beach to the other. Engine number 2 was one of 3 engines. So they had 1, 2, and 3. Billy Jones actually found the engine in a scrapyard because after the railroad went away in 1920, they had no use for them. So number 2 was about to get chopped up into little pieces and shipped to Japan. And Billy actually purchased the engine for $100, which at the time was kind of expensive. But he was able to restore it. It took him about 4 years to restore, and he ran it on his Wildcat Railroad. And he ran the Wildcat Railroad from his orchard for 25 years.
At his home.
Yes.
Yeah. And let's see, I think I read where he didn't charge.
No. Everything was an open donation.
Oh, how sweet. So after he died, then?
After he died, a group of basically supporters of his who went to the railroad week after week didn't want to see this railroad go away. So they came up with the Billy Jones Wildcat Railroad, Inc., and they moved all of the railroad to Oak Meadow Park, which is where we are now.
And I guess we should mention it's like 1/3 the size.
1/3 scale, yes.
1/3 scale. And this is not the only engine.
No.
So you have a lot of engines I read about, and so I'm a little bit confused about the engines. Do they rotate them, or what's?
So we have engine number 2 is our star, basically. So that one runs during our high season, which is March to about October, and that runs Saturdays and Sundays. Recently, we purchased another steam engine. It was actually custom built for us out of Marshall, Wisconsin, and that one runs typically on the weekends, not as often as number 2, because number 2 is the star, but it takes a little bit of the pressure off of number 2. So those primarily run on Saturdays and Sundays. Then we have our diesel engines that take winter weekends, which is kind of slow, and summer weekdays.
So the slow weekends, they get the diesel.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for
There's, well, during the winter time, we're only open for 4 hours, and it takes 4 hours to fire up the engine.
I see. Yeah, I wouldn't know these things.
Yeah, it's just a little bit easier for us to run the diesels because you turn them on like a car and they go. Whereas the steam engines, you really have to
More work.
build up steam and get it going. And plus, wintertime also gives us the opportunity to do maintenance on the steam engines because they require a lot of maintenance. So that's a perfect opportunity for us to just kind of take our time, fix things that really need attention, and get it going. So when the high season comes back, we can run our steam engines.
Yeah. Well, you know, the rides from both of them, the train and the carousel, all of that goes back into the kitty to help with the maintenance. This is probably another stupid question, but you know, which one gets the most repair? The carousel, would you say, or the train, or both but equal? I mean,
the train.
Yeah, the train
The
gets most
train.
of the attention.
train.
Yeah.
And it goes on like a 1 mile.
It's about a mile loop into Vasona Park and then comes back into Oak Meadow Park.
Now I understand also that there's room for volunteers.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Always.
What would they do?
It depends on their expertise, really. We're always needing maintenance on trains, maintenance on buildings, track. Carpenter, yes.
To help with fashioning pieces for the horses
Definitely.
that we need done.
And maintenance on the horses in
Maintenance,
between things.
yes,
and on the carousel
kind of clean
itself.
them. And
So we'll find something for
loads
them
of-
to do.
Loads
Yeah.
of stuff.
But you are open not just weekends. You're open during the week from like
For summer, so
12
June to about August, we're open every
hours.
day. 10:30 to 4:30.
10:30 to 4:30 every day.
Right.
Yes.
Well, we have some pictures of the train.
Yes.
Let's see some pictures, and you tell us what we're looking at.
Yeah, definitely. So these are our 2 diesel engines. 2502 is the black engine, and 3502 is the yellow and green. 2502 is the older of the 2 engines. It was built in 1992. It was actually custom built for us as well. And then 3502 was built in 2008, and that was custom built from Marshall, Wisconsin. So that company did 3502 and engine number 5 for us.
You sound like a train person.
Yeah.
Well,
And our next picture?
So that's Billy Jones on engine number 2 on his orchard. We just celebrated Billy Jones Day at the railroad, basically where we had an open donation for people to ride. So we take, our anniversary is July 26th. So anytime that falls on a weekend, we have Billy Jones Day, and we kind of celebrate the man who started it all.
Why not?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And how long? It was 1970. It's like, this was his original colors for
Yes.
the engine. Okay. And the next one? You get another.
That's engine number 2 today.
Oh.
That was taken a few weeks
So
ago.
this is the star right
Yes.
here.
And obviously number 2's gotten a few facelifts over the years. We had to rebuild our boiler. We had to replace all of the wheels. There's just always something that we're working on this engine because, like I said, you know, it was built in 1905. It requires, you know, some TLC because we do run it quite often. But it is our star, so we want to take care of it.
So how many people have you had going through riding the trains? Do you
Oh,
have
gosh.
any?
I mean, well, for the
keep track?
carousel, since it started in 1991, we've served 1.5 million people.
Wow.
Yeah, so the
Very
carousel is
nice.
about a little bit more, about 2 million. So,
Pretty cool.
yeah.
And see now, did we see all the? Do we have any more? That's it. Oh,
Well,
no,
that's
we
engine
got-
number 5. That's our newest steam engine.
That's the newest one.
Yeah, that one.
They look so large in these pictures.
Yeah.
They don't look like 1/3 scale. That's pretty neat.
You should have some people standing in there so we could
Yeah,
see.
for reference.
Yeah.
So now, what have you done? When did you start the organization? And you know,
I've been with the railroad for 14 years. My anniversary is actually coming up.
oh, congratulations!
Yeah, in a couple of
I
weeks.
hope they throw you a party.
Maybe at 15 years we'll throw a party. I basically have worked every job at the railroad,
Really?
with the exception of I'm not a steam engineer. I tried, I couldn't do it, but I've been involved for a long time. I really care about this organization. Want to make sure that it stays and it succeeds for future generations, so they get the chance to ride it. And yeah, well, that's why we're here,
All
to take
of
care
it.
of it.
All of the kids and
Yes.
everybody out there, and many, many times, and you do it again. the organ, the band organ on the carousel. Back to the
Yes.
carousel. Is that anything special about that I should know about?
Yes.
Sounds great.
It is great. It's I believe it's called Pulitzer, Oregon. Wurlitzer. Wurlitzer. I was close. Wurlitzer,
close.
Oregon. It was purchased back when we purchased the carousel, and
Oh,
it
you got
actually
that
had to
same
go
time.
through its own restoration too. And then about 5 years ago, it went through another restoration because it just kind of stopped working. And so now it's actually digital. So we've kind of brought it to you know the the technology. Yeah, we're
Why
cheating a
not?
little bit, but it does require maintenance as well. So everything in that building always needs a little bit of TLC.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here and sharing this delightful story. I just also want to thank you for your dedication, your hard work, for keeping the train and the carousel working so everybody can enjoy it, future generations, and it'll just keep going and going. And it's very much in part thanks to you. So thanks for watching the show, and watch again.